And welcome into the Wednesday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley alongside Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser, and Paul Kuharski from paulkuharski.com with us for all 3 hours today on the program.
Why? Oh, the 25th anniversary of the Music City Miracle.
Good to break that down.
All day, 3 hours of that, PK. You ready?
Hey, well, 16 seconds left and things aren't looking good for the Titans. Things are not looking good. In an hour at paulkuharski.com, you can read Kevin Dyson and Lorenzo Neal talking about how it changed their lives.
Little sunshine for the Titans fans.
Yeah.
In the meantime, for those 3 hours, we're going to be talking about how it's changing other lives.
Yes, it is. Boy, do we have a lot to get into on the program here today. We're very happy to have PK with us throughout the show today. We'll take your thoughts as always. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Somebody's laptop is on in here, and it is.
Oh, it's
It is
probably mine. Oh, is it yours?
It's mine. It's
there,
off.
there we go. We've now fixed that. All right, so let's just start here. There's a lot to get through and sort through today. Let's just start very simply with what happened, as it typically does, Joe, about 30 to 45 minutes after we went off the air yesterday.
Sure.
Rand Carthon fired by the Tennessee Titans. So Rand Carthon is out. Chad Brinker stays and will lead the search for the next general manager. Now, we'll get a lot more into the Brinker part of this as the show goes on here as well. But let's just start with
Hey, by the way, just God bless the timing, right? You guys get off air every day when there's news pending.
It's unbelievable.
What time did it come out? I heard you sign off yesterday, and I heard it in your voices, and you basically said it like, hey, it's coming any minute.
Yeah. I think it was legitimately about 34 minutes later when it happened. So
Morning radio,
really
where
good
the
stuff.
news happens.
That's right.
Appreciate
So, Joe, let's start with you. Just your thoughts on what went down with the Titans yesterday and the decision to fire Rand Carthon and Rand Carthon alone.
I once covered a college football coaching search, and a source in that search said this thing is a GOAT F word, okay? That's what the Titans are. They are a GOAT F word. That's my analysis.
Yep, that's excellent.
Thank you.
That'll fill up 3 hours.
Hey, we can break that down in a lot of many ways.
Good news is we only have 2 hours and 57 minutes to go.
Yeah,
There we
look, it's we said it before this happened. It's the dumbest of the possible options. They chose D, A, B, C, D for dumb. They hit the button. Amy smashed it. And you tell me, PK, did you know this Sunday? Did you know Sunday that Rand was out?
I did not.
Because I've heard other people say they did. And
Well, I've heard from a source since then that, I should have told a source outside of the Titans realm who knew, who's like,
So everybody knew.
I should have told you. I didn't think. I was like, hey, thanks a lot, man.
Really appreciate
that's
it.
a big one. If you're going to forget me on something, forget me on something little.
So
it
what
was
kind
known.
of a person does that? What kind of a person does that? What Amy Armstrong just did to Rand Carthon?
Oh, people do it all the time.
Just fire him that day. What do you mean people do it? Oh, you're going to dismiss that? That's garbage. It's garbage treatment of human beings.
If they've decided on Sunday, they definitely should do it on
That's what
Monday.
I'm saying.
They should definitely do it on
They
Monday.
did it on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I mean, among all the things that are outrageous about this, let's not forget that one.
That's a bad one for sure.
We'll add that to the list. Let's have a running list today.
They chose D, but I mean, it's also on us for underrating this as a possibility, because I remember very clearly when this structure went into place a year ago, saying Chad Brinker is going to wind up as the GM. He's not the GM, but he's the de facto, power on the executive side of football. And I remember thinking pretty strongly, and I think saying here and elsewhere, when they changed the structure a year ago, Brinker's going to ultimately wind up being the guy.
Yep.
And, I think we talked about the possibility last week that this would happen, but I think I should have, we should have kept alive that idea more than we did as a possibility, whether we think it's the right thing or not, that this was a direction that Amy Adams would go, a comfortable thing for her, akin to Mike Malarkey being the easy choice for her when she was done with Wisenhunt, and then she's been known to take an easy path there. Oh, here's somebody in the building who I like and who is familiar. I don't have to do another search and all of that stuff.
It's a clown show, PK. It's a clown show.
I'm not saying it's not, but here's somebody I'm comfortable with, who I know, who's been wooing me, and I'll do that.
In a franchise where the norm has become choosing the worst possible option, yesterday was, I think, maybe the greatest example of that. And look, let me be totally clear, because I've talked about this for weeks. I have no problem with the Titans firing Rand Carthon. I would have fired Rand Carthon. The fact that they have fired Rand Carthon, and in her statement, she started talking about how she wasn't comfortable leaving things together and staying the course. And yet, in most ways, you're leaving things together and staying the course. I mean, Brian Callahan got up there on Monday and was asked about Chad Brinker and talked about how they've basically been doing everything together in lockstep. He, Rand Carthon, and Chad Brinker. So the results weren't good enough for Rand Carthon, but they are apparently with Chad Brinker. And he's now going to be effectively their football czar moving forward here. To me, for an organization that has done nothing but make the worst possible decisions over the course of the last 3 years, this one's the cherry on top. And look, my first reaction when I saw this yesterday was, well, cool. We get to do this again a year from now when they go 5-12 and they fire Brian Callahan, and then there's the blame shift to Chad Brinker there. We're in a cycle right now where you're going to get to the end of every season and say, okay, so who's getting fired now? That's where we're at.
See it next year's firing.
My number one skeptical thing about this is I think it's structured in a way where Brinker has a maximum control and minimal accountability, though he's ultimately accountable because they keep emphasizing that he ultimately has authority over football decisions. But still, he hires a GM and he could conceivably say, it wasn't me, right? I mean, I have the ultimate power, but this guy did the things. So on that structural basis, I think is majorly flawed, right? But I do think of everybody in town, I'm the one person saying, like, we don't know anything about Chad Brinker's work product, really, except that he's been involved in what's gone on the last 2 years, and it's bad. So I'm the most like Brinker has a clean slate in terms of personnel decisions guy in town for some reason. And
he's also great at stabbing people in the back and saying ridiculous crap in public. I can't wait to read some of his quotes today.
Well, in that regard, I think, and I also, when somebody now gets put forward, like I wasn't a Will Levis guy coming into the draft. When they draft him and make him their quarterback, I said, all right, let's see what he does.
Yeah.
And so I'm at that point with Chad Brinker. Like, I got a lot of questions about it, but now he's the guy. So I don't like a lot of what's happened and a lot of what I've heard, but all right, now he's the guy. Let's see what he does.
Well, you also had you had a story at paulkarowski.com that he's not the general manager.
Yes. And I asked, why? Why aren't you the general manager? And he said, it's too big. There's too much going on now. And I understand that front offices are packed with a lot of people now, but this is a very unconventional structure. I don't think you see it anywhere else.
Yep.
And I think it's very,
stupid.
Very confusing for the fan base here. This has been a GM-centric team for all of time. Now, does that mean you have to have it that way now? No. But if you're going to drastically change it the way they're doing, you need to do a much better job spelling it out for your fans than you do. Because Twitter's loaded yesterday with people saying, well, this new GM's going to come in and he's going to make a judgment on Brian Callahan and not like it and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not what's going to happen now, because while the new GM, quote unquote, has power over the coaching staff, who can overrule that? Chad Brinker.
Yeah.
And so it's Brinker. It's Brinker. So you're used to the GM having all that authority. He no longer has all of that authority. He's a different kind of guy.
So Chad Brinker's the GM, and the next
Effective,
guy is the assistant GM. That's what it is.
As we know the definitions of those terms, yes. But he did say, I thought, one interesting thing that at least clarified this when I talked to him yesterday. He said, if you're a personnel guy that just this is kind of how they characterized it for Rand last year, which obviously didn't work. If you're a personnel guy that just wants to eat, live, and sleep ball and go out and look at players and scout it and not worry about the equipment staff and not worry about analytics and not worry about these other branches and stuff, then it is a job that would interest you. You can just come in and do ball and not worry about that other stuff. Now, how much he undercuts in terms of personnel is the caveat that I have the final say. How much is that put into play? He didn't put a caveat on the caveat. I think that would soften it, where he says, I have final say, but I don't intend to be overruling my people on any kind of regular basis, or it's going to be a consensus thing and I'll just be a tiebreaker or anything like that, which would, I think, put people at ease. Instead, he's saying, yeah, this guy's going to come in and do all of this stuff, but I do have final say.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Paul Kuharsky is with us throughout the show today. What a day yesterday for the Titans. Rand Carthon is fired. Chad Brinker in charge of the next search for the general manager. And as we just kind of discussed there, basically is the de facto general manager here. We'll take your thoughts on all that. I got a couple other things on the Carthon front that I want to touch on next as it relates to the decision-making process here from Amy Adams-Strunk. We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, the game.
And Rand is a tremendous person as far as an evaluator and the relationships he has around the league. And we really wanted to allow him to flourish in that role. Rand brings in a lot of good people, and that's something that this organization can be proud of first and foremost. I do know we have the right GM. Rand Carthon is going to do some great things. He and Brian Callahan just kind of getting this team together. There's a lot of excitement around it. Hope is a powerful thing. We're hopeful that the fan base sees that and is excited about what we're doing now. This is where Rand Carthon is just masterful. He has these relationships with these players in a way that most of us in the building don't. We're just so aligned, he and I. And Rand talks about he has this acronym FIT, fast, instinctive, and tough football players. And I love that. I was like, man, I love that. That's kind of an identity of the team that you want to build. Yeah, Rand's a big part of that. Rand's the one that's really connected with those players in a way that probably no one else has in the building.
That's Chad Brinker. Last offseason, looking ahead to the collaboration with Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan. And here we are a few months later. Rand Carthon is out. Chad Brinker is in charge of finding the next general manager here. Taking your thoughts on that throughout the show. Paul Kuharski with us through the entire program here today.
The stuff they've said about Rand is just silly. And Nihil started it in Jim Wyatt's, basic press release. It's Jim Wyatt's turn. Last year, Mike Keith had it.
Yeah.
Next year, predicting Amy Wells will get it. But this idea that the general manager job has changed, like it's changed substantially in the last 2 years. And I said to Burke, the job has been the same in the history of football, acquire talent.
Yeah.
And you're telling me in 2 years, it's changed dramatically in your thing. Last year I talked to you and you were extolling the virtues of this guy. So now you're telling me in 1 year it's changed. I mean, I guess they can't just come out and say they made a mistake, but they according to their actions, they made a mistake. The job has not changed.
No.
And what they're saying, this thing where they want a guy who's strictly focused on ball and yada, 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 is exactly what they said Rand was going to do.
Exactly.
So Rand failed to do it according to their actions.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, all this stuff about, the general manager job's just too big now. It's too, this is all bullcrap. This is all bullcrap is what this is. And I look at this situation. Again, we talked about this yesterday before this happened, Joe. To me, this is the dumbest possible outcome that you could have come up with. If you don't think things have been good enough around here lately, then fire everybody and start things over and reset everybody together. Instead, what you've now done, you fired Rand Carthon. You got Chad Brinker with the power in this now. And I understand that it's structured differently and they're going to go hire, quote unquote, a GM. But look, Amy knows who has the final say now. And if things don't work, who's she going to blame? She's going to blame Chad Brinker and she's going to blame Brian Callahan. And then she's going to fire them. And then we're going to be right back at what we're at right now, which is just mismanaged timetables, mismanaged timelines. And if she does that, what does that mean for the new general manager that Chad Brinker goes out and hires? This is the most ludicrous outcome possible.
By the way, the next general manager she hires could be in line to become the next, based on the insider thing that she's doing. We talk about that being a bad position. If he comes in and he's smooth with her and everything, he could be in line to be her next favorite.
Yeah.
He could be the odds-on favorite to be the next president of football operations.
Yeah. Just the fact that they've done this and they fired Carthon without firing anybody else, to me, is so dumb. And this, I talked about it yesterday. This is what bad organizations do and bad owners do. And this is a bad organization and a bad owner. And I said it last year. It was hilarious. I went back, we were having these same discussions last year when they fired Mike Vrabel. And, people were all over us about talking about the ownership and how bad it is. And you guys just don't know. Vrabel was the problem. And once they get Vrabel out of here, it's going to be smooth sailing. And to go back and look at some of those replies on Twitter yesterday was pretty rich. How we feeling about ownership now, everybody?
Well,
How's that feel?
Yeah.
Miss Amy, Miss Amy.
Well, I do feel like I think I don't see that now, right? I mean, I think some people wanted them fired or wanted Rand fired, but I see nothing but across the board like, Amy, what the hell? I mean, I don't think there's any. And you're right. Last year there was still, and when Robinson got fired, which was the worst part of that was in season. There was, there were fans were mad at both of those guys, but like at some point you look at the pattern and all you can come back to is Amy has no clue. As one of the worst owners in professional sports, that's it. Period.
I mean, just keep going back to the Vrabel couldn't get along with Carthon and got fired for it, and a year later she fires that guy.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, that sums up the ridiculousness of it.
She was mad at Vrabel for Vrabel not thinking Rand was ready for the job.
And then she confirmed it.
Yeah, well, right, but she's mad about that. They have their thing. Then and let's get into Vrabel's come back. Make sure everybody knows that. And then actually no, I'm changing my mind on that a month later. But his evaluation of Rand was a huge part of the rift. And then a year later, he's out. He
was right.
Let's blame Rand for everything.
And Mike was right.
And Rand is scapegoated here. It depends on your definition, I guess, of that word. Scapegoating to me does not mean Rand's blameless. But, well, look, man, we can go into your story, PK. You had a story, and you know what? You got information, and you wrote that information. That's fine. I mean, Rand taking a nap. Go ahead. Tell people who haven't read the story. What are the damning facts about Rand Carthon?
I have more damning facts than I included in the story, but these are things that left a mark on other people who worked with him. That GMs traditionally get on a plane home and do the same things that everybody on the football end do. They eat their meal and they get on their laptop and start to evaluate the film, either of the game to break down what just happened or looking at the next opponent or whatever. Is it weird that GMs do that? Yeah, I think it's kind of weird, but that's what's done. And he didn't regularly do that. He regularly snoozed on plane rides home. Now, whether that's a big deal or not to us, that's a big deal to other people that were with him.
It's a big deal to the weasel who told you this, I mean, that's what it is. It's the weasel who told you this.
It wasn't one weasel.
Well,
it was multiple weasels.
I mean,
and I don't think they're weasels. I think they're people who don't think that he's a grinder. And
I think they are
repeatedly
weasels.
Saw that he didn't put in the same kind of work that they put.
But see, here's the thing.
That saw him at Will Levis's workout when they're contemplating making this guy their next franchise quarterback and didn't stay to see the whole thing.
Well, they didn't even send him to the Senior Bowl. I mean, the whole thing is stupid. They got Brinker at that last year, and they don't have Rand. I mean, everything they do makes no sense, Paul. And listen, if there's work that he didn't do, like there's a division of labor and Rand didn't do his part, well then, okay, let's talk about that. Because they saw him on the plane snoozing, I don't give a rat's ass. That's so
but
dumb.
That's not important that you didn't give a rat's ass.
But Paul,
his co-workers
what does it mean?
Saw this and it bothered them tremendously. And it was part of what they saw as a trend.
You can go home and break down film. I mean, again,
I don't think they felt like he was doing
but
that.
Again, that's
his
the question.
Work product to them didn't indicate he was doing
so he wasn't. That's the question, though. I don't care. Oh, I saw him snoozing on the plane. Give a crap.
To them, it was symbolic of his work.
But I don't care about symbolism. Did he not do the job?
To them, he wasn't doing the job the way they were doing the job.
615-737-1025.
I'm not throwing that around loosely, Joe.
I understand that. I have a real problem with some of these people who have stabbed him in the back, and Brinker and the way he's come out of this and the way he's talking about patience right now just bothers the hell out of me.
615-737-1025. We'll have more of your thoughts to get to. We'll get to some of your thoughts on our phone line. Got up next. There's a line from the statement that Amy Adams-Strunk put out there that just bothers the absolute hell out of me. We'll get into that coming up next as well. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Paul Kuharski with us throughout the program today, taking your thoughts on the Titans and the firing of Rand Carthon. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in David to the program. David, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. Quick thought here. I have zero faith in the Titans organization. I thought it was interesting how Rinker himself used the term hope. But I'm just wondering, and maybe not out of the kindness of her heart, if she didn't fire Callahan because she's waiting for the next GM to make that decision. And in some ways, I could possibly support that. But at the end of the day, again, I have zero faith in them. And it's very frustrating. But anyway, you all have a good day. Appreciate you taking my call.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.
It's Brinker's decision.
She's
The
not
next
waiting for
GM
the
is
next
just
GM.
coming in to be Brinker's assistant.
Here's that GM confusion. The
You
GM,
just- you already said earlier in the show, he's the de facto GM.
yes.
Okay.
But this guy's saying it. Is she waiting for the next GM to make the decision?
But-
No, she's not, because Brinker
has the decision.
has more power than the next GM.
Right.
But this is the kind of thing we're going to hear for the duration of Chad Brinker's term. No matter how long
Yeah.
it is, people are going to call in and say, is the GM going to do this or that? And we're going to have to say, well, Brinker has more power than the GM. Brinker can veto anything the GM wants to do. This is the scenario they've created.
Well,
We're going to hear this nonstop.
and out of that scenario, we're inevitably going to get to, so who are the candidates? Who are the candidates for general manager? And people are going to throw around, Rick Spielman and guys that have been in the league and have been general managers before. And none of those guys are taking this job. Why would you? You don't have final say on the roster.
Well, yeah, that there are GMs who go to jobs where, in theory, where like the coach, for example, I mean, John Lynch doesn't have final say, right? But he is the GM. We still look at John Lynch as the GM. So that's where it gets interesting. Is like, just because there's 32 that are called GM, how attractive is a job? Some people are definitely going to be like, no, I'm not messing with this. But especially, it's not even.
And Brinker said that.
It's not just
not
the
for
Brinker
everybody.
aspect. It's also who owns
The
the
owner.
team.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
exactly.
looking at this franchise. You want to come over here?
Right.
Oh, yeah, come on over.
Well, look,
But there are also guys in every one of those situations that think, well, that's a messy situation. I can go be part of cleaning it up.
for sure.
They don't have
mediocrity is good there, right?
Well,
now.
look, I'll put it to you this way. I was talking about this with somebody off the air yesterday. He'll never say this because it serves him absolutely no purpose to say this. But I can imagine like Brian Callahan, who, by the way, there's a lot of work that's got to be done with him, and he's got to be way better. And we've talked about all that. But I would imagine Brian Callahan in a private moment is probably sitting around and saying, man, did I just make a colossal mistake by taking this job? Like, I don't know how you couldn't be thinking that if you're him.
Absolutely. Has to be, right?
Yeah.
And it's like Matt from Fairview on the text line. By the way, text line, I mean,
Keep 'em coming.
Yeah, keep them coming today. We're gonna miss a few, okay? But Matt from Fairview says, can you explain? Rand hired Brinker from Green Bay part. Then 2 years later, he's hired over Rand, and then he fires him. That's some Game of Thrones stuff. Yeah. I mean, Rand certainly identified Brinker. Rand also, I think Brinker too, but Rand obviously identified Callahan and was aggressively, bringing him in, and then Rand is the fall guy. And I look, again, to our previous conversation, I'm not disagreeing with you, Rob. You said earlier, like, you have a problem with Rand being fired. I don't either, as long as it's part of the whole thing. This half measure is comical, and it does look like Game of Thrones stuff.
But I will say on the Game of Thrones stuff, and I'm not a Game of Thrones guy.
It has dragons.
I don't like dragons in science fiction. But you have Brinker blowing past Rand.
Yep.
All right, say what you will about that. Rand was able to be blown past is also a factor. So everybody's like, whoa, Chad, a power broker getting by Rand. Well, if Rand was good and powerful and not sitting in the corner of the room letting Vrabel push him around and all of that stuff, he maybe couldn't have been blown past by a guy that he hired.
But a year ago, Paul, we got Amy talking to Mike Keith. We got Rand, and a year ago, that people, and I know too, because I was
You used to be involved.
Exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, they were whispering all the sweet nothings about Rand, and really it was Vrabel and all this. I mean, it was a year ago. So that was the promotion happen amid that, right? So when did Amy actually, I mean, to me, it's just a reaction to this crappy season, right?
Well,
and it's a reaction to whatever Game of Thrones stuff may have happened behind the scenes.
Oh, in the midst of Vrabel getting fired in part because he didn't think Rand was up for the job, they were already reducing Rand's job.
Well, and here's the other thing.
When he got narrowed to, it's funny, he got narrowed, but more authority on personnel.
And here's the other thing. This is not just a Titans thing, but Rand got an extension in this too.
Sure. Of course.
Why does this happen in professional sports all the time?
Happens more in college.
I understand that he technically got, an elevation last year.
Pat on the head.
Does that have to come with a contract extension? And he had 1 year as the general manager, and they went 6-11.
And was it an elevation? I mean, it's like in this one area you get more power, but I'm taking away all your other powers, and I'm giving you a contract extension. I mean, it's a pat on the head thing. It was to placate him. And let's hit on this. Josina Anderson is putting out there like there's some investigation. There's no way there's any investigation into the power structure of the Titans front office. First off, the Titans can structure their front office however the hell they damn please. Secondly, Rand Carthon signed a contract to come work for the Titans without personnel power. His first year, he did not have personnel power. Nobody had personnel power. It was a cluster, right? We didn't know who was making the decisions. And that was the complication, Vrabel or Carthon or Vrabel. In his second year, he got more power and a new contract. So the idea that he's telling Josina Anderson there should be some sort of investigation over the structure of this, he wound up fired from a better job than the one he initially signed up for. What is the beef here about the structure?
Well, I didn't understand. I saw her tweets. I didn't really understand.
And then people are confusing this. They're saying this is the second time they're being investigated for structure. The old structure issue was with the ownership structure, right, which has long been resolved. So pay attention and concentrate here. And my understanding is you can structure your front office however the hell you want. The whole thing is a guy going to sign up to come for your job, whether it has final say or not? Yeah. And Rand Carthon made his decision and signed a contract.
Like the job titles, obviously, they come with rules for your hiring right?
Sure.
The title
spelled out in your contract.
Yeah, but I'd never heard of what she was talking about.
I didn't. That was a weird
carrying water for Rand.
Let's get back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Jaden to the program. Jaden, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Morning, guys. So this has obviously been a big cluster bleep. But I mean, firstly, I don't know if you're Amy. I don't know how you send your head football coach up to the podium without talking to him as he goes and represents your team. Number two, does she understand that in two years, maybe 3, that she has to put a football team in this new stadium that's worth watching? And she's making decisions like she made on Tuesday, firing the GM and not cleaning house. Like, it's pure unprofessionalism. And I have zero trust in her. I have zero trust in the Titans front office. I think I'm speaking for a majority of the fans that nobody trusts her. And quite frankly, why is she here? I don't think she knows ball, and the decisions that she's made has shown that. But hey, let Amy cook. So I'll leave it at that.
She's here because she inherited the team. I mean, it's pretty simple. That's how life works. I disagree with both your points, really. I mean, if Callahan's staying, there's no necessity for her to have a conversation with him before he talks to the press about his vision going forward. I mean, he's going to have a big meeting with her and talk about all that stuff.
If she's made it clear that he's staying.
Well, it's clear he's staying.
Okay. Well, he's also up there talking about the conjecture about Rand. I mean,
well, they always have awkward stuff like that. And you knew the Rand decision, because of the way they operate, wasn't going to come lightning quick. But I mean, I don't have a huge issue. Like, if he's having a normal season wrap press conference, I don't think there's urgency that he had talked to the owner before that.
Okay. So you found the one thing we cannot be outraged about.
And what? No, I'm just answering the guy's questions. And what was his other point? Selling tickets. By all indications, I don't know why, but people with money in Nashville are buying PSLs to the new stadium, regardless of the trend of the Titans football. If you buy PSLs there, you get WrestleMania. You get to buy WrestleMania tickets and college football playoff tickets and Final Four tickets and all of that stuff. And the lure of that and NFL football, no matter how bad the home team may be, apparently is moving tickets. Everybody I know who's passing through there is telling me what they're seeing about what's sold is quite good.
Okay. I mean, I have a hard time buying that this product isn't. I mean, we're hearing from people who aren't renewing. I guess if someone's going to just pick it up, then they're fine. But there's people out there saying they're not renewing.
Yeah. Either it is what I'm saying, or they're doing an incredible job of faking the fact that things are sold. But I think that would be a hell of a job to be able to fake it on that grand a scale, akin to like most conspiracy theories, where too many people would have to be collectively lying with no whistleblowers.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the allure of a new stadium will carry you for a while. We've talked about that. Like, I think that will. I think it'll carry you for a while. And the idea of, first priority, the Final Four and college football playoff and all this stuff, Super Bowl, that'll carry you for a while until it doesn't, and you're worried about the product on the field. The problem is that's still way in the future.
It doesn't matter about carry you for a while, because once you pay that initial money,
exactly,
you're in.
Right, exactly.
So it carries you for 30 years.
Yeah. 615-737-1025, our phone number. More reaction to the firing of Rand Carthon coming up next, including another interesting report that came out last night that I want to get PK and Joe's thoughts on as well. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get it all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Paul Kuharski, Nick Keys are here with you on this Wednesday morning. Full reaction to the Titans firing of Rand Carthon. So I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. Now, Stilly put this out there last night, and say what you will about Stilly, but I think clearly he's got a source.
Stilly was right.
He's got some things right throughout the last several years, and he was right about Carthon getting fired early in the week. So
he's got some things wrong too.
That is true. With all that in the background, here's what he put out there last night. It says, hearing Chad Brinker did not want to keep Brian Callahan on as coach, but Brinker isn't the owner, and she wanted Callahan to coach the Titans. And remember that Callahan won't meet with upper management until the end of the week. Your reaction when you hear that, Joe Rexrode?
Brinker trying to throw everybody else out of there but him. Just stand at the head of his kingdom. Oh, my goodness. I mean, I don't know. I want to hear your reaction, PK. Chad Brinker, he's pulled people just loving Chad Brinker today.
I don't know what to believe there. I do believe that she probably leads the patients. I've had other indications different than that. Could they have been owner driven? I suppose they weren't especially recent, but I don't know. I have no doubt that look, the way to do it, whatever happens going forward, is one guy's success is the other guy's success. Yep. And they're bound together, and the leash should be short on both. And I think that is one silver lining, if you will, that they both know that while Brinker's talking about long-term and patience, that sounds good, but Amy Adams Strunk isn't operating that way lately. And that if this thing doesn't get off the ground pretty quickly, we could get two guys on the same clock the way most of us desire in relative short order if things don't spin better quickly.
And then you got the GM that's hired this offseason that who knows what happens on that front. So here's what Amy Adams Strunk put out in her statement yesterday.
You loved this statement.
Yeah, they're really good stuff.
They're getting shorter and shorter.
They are getting shorter. This was more succinct. I'll just read it. I've loved the time I've spent with Rand. He's a talented football mind, great man, friend to everyone along the path. It's impossible to ignore that our football team hasn't improved over the past 2 years. I'm deeply disappointed in our poor win-loss record during this period, of course, but my decision also speaks to my concern about our long-term future. Should we stay the course? She goes on to talk about how much she loves the team and the fans and all that.
P.S. Oh, dang it. P.S. Chad had nothing to do with it. He's cool.
Well, I guess
he's fine.
That's my question. So she talks about the decision speaks to the concern about our long-term future. Should we stay the course?
I misread that the first time.
How involved has Chad Brinker been in where they are right now?
Only
that's
the good
my
stuff.
question.
Only the good stuff. The bad stuff was Rand.
Because
the good stuff was Chad.
Yeah, like all we've heard over the last year is how they're all in lockstep. I mean, the last thing we heard from Brian Callahan on Monday was about how they're all in there working together. So if you're telling me why in the world, as a Titans fan, would I have confidence in your decision to keep Chad Brinker if that's what you're worried about? You've been telling us one thing for the past year plus, and now all of a sudden you're worried about the long-term course and you're keeping the guy there? That makes no sense to me at all.
Which is why there was no video, because it would have been it would have.
She's off the video.
Induced laughter.
First, she stopped talking publicly. Now she stopped being videotaped.
So we've switched it to
next. It only be in Braille.
Jimmy White having to sit there and listen to these quotes from Brinker and Nihill, which are some of the dumbest quotes I've ever read in my life. Like, did Jimmy White have to stifle vomiting as he's like transcribing these quotes?
We love you, Jimmy.
My God,
he's part of it.
Yeah, I don't blame. Well,
he's part of it now.
Well,
I mean, how do you absolve it?
He just
It's his job.
quoting them. I know, but I understand he works for the Titans, but he's just quoting these terrible, like read the quotes from the Titans, story for Jim Y. I can't, and my God, see, I knew this was going to happen to me today. Like my brain is like moving faster than my mouth because I'm so flustered by this garbage.
Do you want me to devil's advocate it and tell you how she's rationalizing it?
Sure. You're rationalizing everything today. Keep going.
I'm rationalizing everything. She looks at it and says, we're losing football games because of the roster. And I put Rand Carthon in charge of the roster. He was involved in the roster 1 year with Mike. And last year I gave him exclusive roster power. And the roster hasn't gotten better.
Let's go back to what you just said about what Brian Callahan just said to you and everybody in that room the other day. Do we have the quote?
We need another roster cycle.
No. We worked on everything together.
Yeah.
That's what he just said.
Everything together. But who had the final say? This whole thing is final say is hugely important in this. Chad has it now. Rand had it before. Who has it? That's what she's judging as like the thing. Fair enough. I'm not saying it's right. I'm telling you inside her head. You have to get inside these crazy eccentric people's heads when they're doing this crazy stuff. I'm not justifying it. I'm telling you what I think she's thinking. And that's what I think she's thinking. I'm not satisfied with the roster where it is. Who's in charge of the roster? Rand. Right. Let's get rid of the guy who's in charge of the roster. I'll give the power to Chad now. Let's see what Chad can do with the roster.
Well, it's a pattern, right? Like she was all in on J-Rob until she wasn't, and then was all in on Vrabel until she wasn't. And then it switched to Rand, and now that's gone.
And she wasn't because of Vrabel, in large part because of Rand.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
The constant yo-yoing of favorites is got to stop. And like I said, and I read somebody writing about this the other day about a hiring coming somewhere else. Your success is his success is your success. No separating the two. She's got to get to a point where she's got that with two guys. It was like that with Vrabel and Robinson for the best time of this franchise in recent history. And then, of course, it's hard to keep it that way for a long time. They had it that way for a period of time, and guess what? They got pretty good.
Football games. Liam McLeod brings up a really good point. I assume you'll be there to cover this, PK. He says, have they scheduled the franchise employees round of applause for Brinker? I very much I need to see this.
He already works there, but
I think it'd be great, though. I think they need to do it. I think they need to do it.
Get everybody out in the hallway.
I don't know.
It's recorded.
I'll say this. When that happened, I said, that is too much. That is over the top. And the fans said, no, let Rand cook. This is going to be awesome. That you prejudge. You prejudge that the guy's excellent. You don't come in with any skepticism whatsoever. Oh, it's such a moving thing, they all said. Oh, this is so wonderful. It's beautiful. Look at the whole building. Oh, my God. Look at the chef. Never mind Rand cooking. There's actually a guy with a chef hat who came out of cooking omelets to applaud Rand.
Actually,
it was so
cooking.
over the top.
Stop
so
cooking.
Over the top. Here's an idea. Hire a guy now for this GM job. Let him enter the building silently with no social media at all. And when he wins a Super Bowl, have an ovation. That's my plan. What do we think?
I love it.
Not going to happen.
I'm fully behind
The
it.
Super Bowl part. Yeah.
Wow.
No, also the video part.
Also
there will, I guarantee, join me in this, cosign. There will be video of that guy entering the building.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I have no doubt.
They cannot stop themselves.
No.
And when there is video of that guy entering the building, a certain percentage of Titans fans will coo at it. Oh, look how sweet. Everybody should comment on that video. Shut your cameras off.
No, this is the best example of this is still going back to the Malarkey, playoff year where it was like after they beat the Chiefs, it was like, that's our coach. Oh yeah. And then like a week later, it's like, new era. Let's go.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We got a whole lot more to get into on the firing of Red Carthon and the path forward now for the Tennessee Titans. Paul Kuharsky with us for the entire program today. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Paul Kuharski, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. Titans fire Rand Carthon. What is the path forward now for this football team? Taking your thoughts on that throughout the show. A lot of thoughts rolling in here. We appreciate it on the text line. Keep them coming. YouTube chat is flowing. By the way, the YouTube chat, throwing it out there, that apparently someone has come up with let Brinker tinker as the next kind of catchphrase here, which I am fully behind. That's good.
That is absolutely glorious. Who did that? Who has that one?
Jordan put it on the YouTube chat, but it's per Stoney Keeley. So
okay.
Shout out to Stoney.
Stoney, nice. Let Brinker tinker.
If by saying it's glorious, you mean it's horrific, right?
No, that's outstanding wordplay.
It's fun wordplay. It's no let Rand cook, which was awful in terms of philosophy, but
Execution
good
did
in
go very
terms
well.
of
Who came up with let Rand cook?
I don't know.
None of these things are copyrighted, Joe.
That is true.
I mean, that should have been T-shirts. I saw Andrew hand over the chef hat.
What are the
By
Titans
the way,
players going to do now with are they going to have to wear team apparel? Are they not going to be able to wear like
the tee
anymore
the cool
with those
tee?
hats?
That's a good question. I want to shout out our friend Andrew, by the way. I've appreciated his commentary.
Absolute
weaseling that has gone on in this organization.
I'm fine with Andrew being critical of my story.
I don't want you to be upset. Your delicate
upset.
sensibilities.
I would say
defend
this.
The Titans.
Here's my delicate sensibility. Andrew hides strong opinion on Andrew's evening internet show. When Andrew is on after a midday radio show that's on the Titans network. I would like Andrew to express his opinions that the new general manager is going to be a word that I probably can't say on here.
You cannot.
When he says that on his evening show, very strong opinion.
That word? You can't say that word?
No.
I honestly had no idea.
Nick is saying no very strongly from in there.
Huh.
I would like Andrew, who probably is in line on the Titans radio network station.
Would you stop talking about other networks?
To have him as a guest when he's hired, I would like him to say that on that station.
When he says it in the public, you don't give credit for that?
Saying it in the public on the internet show is not the same as saying it on your radio.
Yeah, there's no way that's getting to anybody.
Joe, come on.
If
I have two platforms,
AOL dial-up right now, what are you talking about?
If I have, my God, the degree to which you're defending him is remarkable. If I have two platforms,
like you with the Titans.
If I have two platforms and one is bigger than the other, and I save my strongest opinions for the small one, I'm saving my small opinions for the small one because I'm not brave enough to say my big opinions on the big one.
I think you're nitpicking. I support you, Andrew.
You're absolutely ridiculous on that.
I mean,
that's called hiding your big opinions and saying them on smaller volume.
I'm not going to.
If you have big opinions, say them on the big signal.
Do you listen to the whole radio show? I don't.
No.
Okay, then how the hell do you know what he's saying?
Because he's got a habit of doing this.
How do you know?
Because I've
Is this the same people who saw Rand?
This
is your same source who saw Rand napping in the plane? Oh my God, Rand had a packet of peanuts on the plane. Most GMs are breaking down film.
See, the thing is, though, like, I feel like this has turned into
Robby?
a big, like, I feel like some people think we're going to sit here and defend Rand Carthon. I said to start the show, I stand by it now. Fire him. I have no problem firing Rand Carthon. Just the way that it is all played out here with everybody else leaves me disgusted with this franchise right now.
I mean, here's a quote from Brinker in this Wyatt story that I guess replaces Amy talking to Mike Keith.
It absolutely does.
Quote at the end. Well, I know. Just be quiet for a minute. Quote, at the end of the day, this person is going to be all ball all day. They're going to focus on the roster, the coach staff, and I'll continue my role with handling all the other areas, blah, 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 blah. I mean, is that not subtweeting Rand? I mean,
yes.
Yeah. I mean,
but you're criticizing me for saying it wasn't all ball all day. Paul, you can't say it, but the official website can say it. The Titans are saying it, but I can't say it.
Right. But again, this is the point being that Brinker is completely throwing this guy under the bus. I mean, we need to play the Brinker thing again. It's just like,
Do you
how
think
could you
fired
trust
guys don't get thrown under the bus by the people that fire them? What reality are you living in?
this guy was brought here by Rand Carthon. And then we already played on the show. We'll play it again.
He's usurped him.
18 times talking about what an incredible human and GM he is. It's
an incredible flip.
How do you trust this person? How do you trust this person who everything we know about this whole situation? How?
What do I have to trust him with? I'm going to see what he does going forward. I hope he adds good football players to the team.
Yep.
I mean,
I don't work for him, Joe. I don't have to trust him. I don't have to worry about him stabbing me in the
sure?
back and taking my job.
You sure?
What is this? You're
Hey,
the
text line is popping with Paul. Paul's carrying water today, so I'm just.
Well, let's read. Go ahead and read one.
Okay.
Is it popping, or are you?
It's popping.
Pretending it's popping.
Oh no, it's popping. I'll go back 20 texts and find one.
Because I'm not freaking out. I'm carrying water. I mean, it's unbelievable.
there have been some of that.
And I'm hearing silence. I'm hearing silence from you.
Yeah, thank you, Robbie. I mean, we are actually monitoring the text line. It is popping. Robbie, you read them too. Thank you. Yes.
Right.
Let me just
and
say,
once again, you continue to not read one.
let me paraphrase. You're carrying water for Chad Brinker. There's the text line. Okay. So, it's fine. Look, in all seriousness, on a couple things with this, one thing about Rand that I think is a fair criticism. Well, one is the product, but again, that's where Chad's also involved just as much as he is to me. And the whole last call thing, are you sure about that even? Are you sure that Rand had last call? Like, do you know of a situation where Rand overruled Chad and Brian and said, no, we're doing this?
I don't know of a situation, but if you have final power, your name is connected to the guy.
Yeah.
John Robinson's name is connected to all those guys because he was picking those guys.
But you can't compare the last year of what the situation was with what Robinson's situation was. Not at all.
Well, no, because it's a different structure.
Yeah.
It's a different setup.
So
It's a dumb setup.
Rand was, Rand not being responsive, like basic stuff like to media who covered the team. But that was, to me, a red flag of he doesn't really get
Look,
it.
Rand did a bad job. Rand was a bad general manager.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. The product was
that's
bad.
fine, but that's not what Joe wants to talk about.
No.
Because he's more upset about other things, and he pretty much is winding up defending Rand.
No, I'm not defending Rand at all. I have a problem with the people who are throwing him under the bus. That's
if the guy did a bad job, I mean, how could people say he did a bad job?
But Paul,
what are they doing?
But Paul,
why would they say he did a bad job when he did a bad job?
But see, the other guy who did the bad job is here, and let's celebrate Chad Brinker.
Well,
okay, right?
All right. Where are your sources saying that Chad Brinker did a bad job? Bring it forward. Write it. Talk about it.
Oh, really? Oh, I need sources to tell that? Is that right? I need sources to demonstrate that Chad Brinker's done a bad job? Robbie, help me out. Robbie's my source. Have you watched the Titans play football the last couple years, Robbie? You could be my source. Thank you.
I'm not saying he's done a good job. I'm saying you're criticizing me for having details about Rand doing a bad job.
I already said earlier, I don't have a problem with you writing. I have a problem with the people who told you that. There's a difference.
But if there were people telling me about Brinker, I'd be writing that too.
But yeah, okay. But again, we're hearing what we have is, and again, it's fine that you wrote it, but what we have is Rand took naps on the plane. Okay. The product is the problem.
That's not all that we have. You're being like your guy in the afternoon or like dumb caller. We have Rand took naps on the plane and
he left to work out early.
And it rubbed people the wrong way. An organization full, a front office full, a coaching staff full of people. It rubbed them the wrong way. It left a bad scent, a bad feeling about him with them.
So in
it set a bad tone from the top.
So in the 2023 season, after which we heard all the amazing things, we got Rand and oh yay. So that year he stayed awake on a plane? Was he breaking out? Oh, he was napping that year too.
They did it.
But that year it didn't matter.
Who said it didn't matter?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out. I heard a year ago how amazing he was.
From who?
Robbie.
The entire organization.
I mean, help me out, Robbie. My God.
Not these people. Not the people.
We don't need you to go Mr. Magoo today on this stuff.
The people that I've talked to throughout this, who date back, not with the plane stuff, not with the Levis workout stuff, obviously, who have the same concerns about him, predate him being hired.
So last year when they fired Rabel, No one in that organization came to you and told you how Rand's actually really great and Vrabel was kind of the issue. No one. I mean, I'm asking you seriously.
Yeah,
okay.
high management. Yes, the people who worked under him, there were people with concerns about him right out of the gate.
Okay.
And certainly after they worked through a draft season with him.
So again, a year ago, Rand was amazing. He was the bee's knees. That's from Amy with her thing with Mike and all this stuff. Apparently he did the same stuff.
I'm talking about people that work over him.
I am.
I'm talking about people who work with and under him.
You're asking me for sources on who. I mean, this is the messaging we got from the Titans was how good Rand was.
Well, how can you not differentiate this? Amy and Chad and Burke loved him and messaged that he was great. He's a little bit of a con guy and buddying up and relationship-wise with those people. Now, the people that he then worked over or with were not nearly as impressed with him as those people.
Okay. So the people that were high up, they didn't see any of this stuff. This is only from people who were his subordinates who saw this stuff.
I think Amy's pretty blind to a whole lot of stuff.
Amy, fine, but who else is on the plane? They weren't on the plane?
This franchise has to have set the record for conversation about a plane in the last 2 years. I mean, unbelievable. Now we got a plane from Green Bay. A lot of planes.
I got a water bottle here. Cheers to Todd Down.
615-737-1025. We'll have more reaction to the firing of Red Carthon coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
What was the involvement like for Chad Brinker? Like how did that work?
Chad was involved in all of it. You know, Chad's he's scouted before for a long time. That's what he's done. His background is in personnel. It's in scouting, but he's also got unique experiences, you know, in the business side of it with his time in Green Bay, and has a really good feel for what the structure of an organization should look like. And yeah, it's really been the three of us sort of all the way along, you know, from the time I got here and all the way through the season is we've all sort of worked on the same things, and Chad has his responsibilities and Rand has his and I have mine, and we all come together and try to make the you know, whenever decisions are made or whenever we need to do something, that we're all on the same page, and we have been all year. That part's been really, really fun for me. I've enjoyed that part because I think Chad's got unique experiences, unique perspective, and so does Rand. I think they're both really unique people. I'm glad we have them.
Well, you had them. At least one of them. That was Brian Callahan earlier this week on the Chad Brinker involvement alongside he and Rand Carthon.
I wish them good luck in their death match to see who continues with the organization to work with me. Oh, Chad won.
Do we think there was any kind of struggle like that? That's not my sense. I mean,
your
this thing
sense is that Chad did everything right.
No, my sense is not that. Well, Chad did everything right in terms of winning Amy.
That's true.
There's no doubt about that. No doubt. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Doug to the program, who I think we just lost Doug. Sorry, Doug.
Douglas.
Douglas
Sorry,
left.
Doug. Come on back, Doug. All right, can I get into this real quick, Robby?
Sure.
You want me to get into this? No?
I don't know what you're going to get into, but sure.
All right, the Tennessee and Nick Suss. There's a lot of stuff. I mentioned the official Titans website story with some just amazing Chad Brinker and Burt Nihill quotes yesterday. Let's keep that blood pressure down, folks. No FCC violations. Thank you for your concern, text line.
A lot of concern.
Here's a lead from Nick Suss, the Tennessean. Quote, last January, in the hours after the Tennessee Titans fired coach Mike Vrabel, general manager Rand Carthon refused to share his vision for the organization's future. A year later, in the hours after the Titans parted ways with Carthon on Tuesday, President of Football Operations Chad Brinker had no problem sharing his vision. Quote, we're going to be a draft and develop organization, and on and on. By the way, this story goes on to basically have Brinker talking about how like it's going to require years of patience, which I'm sure Titans fans absolutely love hearing that idea.
I'm sure the owner does too.
Yeah, well, so actually here's a line. I got to get to this too that Nick wrote. So basically he was asked, he said, one, Brinker brought up the patience point several times. He talked about Green Bay, things like that. It was pointed out to him that hasn't been afforded his predecessors. When he asked if he believes Adam Strunk will afford the team the time it takes to execute his vision, Brinker didn't answer directly, but instead preached what he knows, and there's a long quote about that. So first of all, PK, so the whole vision thing, this brings me back to last year, and one of the things that really was, I thought, hilarious. This Rand didn't, that was you asking him, was that you were like, what's the vision?
Well,
and
I pressed him on it when he didn't have one.
So like, it's almost like this is like culture, or this is like when coaches are like, the identity of my team. What's the identity? We're trying to figure out the identity of your team. Okay, so what is it? Like a coach will never say, well, we're kind of a soft finesse team. We're a little bit selfish, but we're talented. We're going to win. We're a blue collar unselfish. So what's the vision? It's winning. It's winning championships. We're a draft and develop. No kidding. That's what a revolutionary idea. Draft and develop. Why am I raising my voice so much? I don't know. But it's like
they'd like to find good players.
Yeah. The vision is get good players and win football games. Why do we need to talk about that?
It's not so much to me that he says that. It's that he actually has something and is able to say it, especially with the low standard that the Titans have set when Rand Carthon looked like a deer in the headlights when he was asked for that. Like it's the why do you want to be president question. If you don't have an answer for that, you can't run for president. If you don't have an answer for what your vision is as a general manager or a coach, or what kind of team you want to be, you're kind of disqualified from it. You have to at least have a boilerplate thing about what you want to be.
Well, the funny thing, but the thing about that is actually Rand from the very first press conference was all like, everybody can talk about Golden State Warriors, but physicality, blah, blah, which is like what the Niners were built on. So he already had said that. I agree. If you get asked point blank, you can't just say, yeah, our vision is like, we're going to win. We want to win. You should just say that. But also it's just like, what kind of what kind of answer do we really expect here? Right? Everybody's trying to do the same thing in this league.
Well, you're blaming Nick Suss for his question.
I'm not blaming Nick Suss.
You are.
No, I'm
How come
not.
you can sit here and hammer me for doing reporting, and you support Buck for going ballistic on a hidden show?
Oh my God.
And you read Nick Suss's thing and make fun of it, but then you don't blame Nick Suss. You're
I'm not
selective.
I'm
it's
using
unbelievable.
No, I'm
The
using
personal vendetta against you.
Now you
and
just
it
don't
goes
want to
back-
piss people off. The only person you're willing to piss off is me.
It goes
But
back
Buck
to not
gets kid
appreciating
gloves.
you.
But
That's what it
Buck
goes back
gets
to.
kid gloves, and Nick Suss gets kid glove.
well the
You're
the
massaging your two boys, but hammering me.
No,
It's so inconsistent and stupid. You're embarrassing.
The lead. I'm not embarrassed myself at all. The lead brings up the stupidity from you a year ago. That's the whole point.
Send back to
Thank you,
our
Nick
1025
Suss.
The Game phone line.
Appreciate
Welcome in
you.
Ray to the program. Ray, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, fellas. Appreciate it. Joe, you better off arguing with a mirror than arguing with Paul. He's never going to admit he's wrong. He's never going to admit anything.
What am I wrong on? Go ahead, set me straight.
I mean, I just listened to the radio. You sound like you're wrong about 90% of the stuff you said.
Well,
that you wanted.
give me one thing. Let's narrow it. We'll talk about one thing. Give me one thing I'm wrong on, and we'll discuss it.
Okay, you saying they reported they fired a man because he was sleeping on the plane.
I didn't say that they said they fired him because he's sleeping on the plane. I said he did a bad job because of things like sleeping on the plane that his colleagues and coworkers did not respect him for.
The same thing. What are you saying? That's the whole. That's what I'm telling you.
You're
Joe.
already tangling things up and not making sense. Terrible call.
Yeah. So are you? You're a terrible reporter.
I'm the only one that reported anything about what Rand was doing. I'm the best reporter in town on this.
Hey, to follow up Ray's call, I got a text says PK has gone from prosecuting attorney to defense lawyer in 2 hours. Wonder how much Amy paid him. I'm just telling you, people are saying what they're saying on the text line, Paul. You're telling me I'm making it up. I'm not making it up.
Apparently, the whole city just wants everybody to crush them for everything, and I'm on board. This is a mess.
Yeah,
but they are going to move forward with this, and so I'm trying to give you a little bit of like, I don't know what it's going to look like, what the potential is for it. That a guy has a little bit. I don't know what I'm doing. That I'm just not bashing to the required level.
I guess not.
Texter says, Paul is blurring the line between reporting and selling the party line. Evan says, here we go.
Selling the
PK
party
defending
line.
Chad Brigger. I mean, I'm just reading the text line, man. I'm just delivering information. I mean, whatever the texters say, what they're going to say.
Here's what I'm saying about Chad Brinker. We don't know that he does not have a personnel track record here for us to judge.
How do you figure? You're telling me that we just heard Brian Callahan live the other day?
He said he's involved in everything. Again, who had the final say?
So now all of a sudden, Rand was just a hardline final say guy. I never heard that before this. You cannot divorce Chad Brinker from the bad personnel decisions of the last year. You cannot divorce him from that.
Entirely divorce him. But if you want to know who took Peter Skoronsky at 11, it ultimately, with who's left in this thing, falls primarily on who?
Carthon.
And certainly, if you want Latham this year at 7, who does it primarily fall on, Joe?
Carthon.
They went out of their way to say Rand Carthon has final decision.
Did they?
Yes,
they
did say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
They shaped the whole thing last year.
They said it one time in that weird press release. Okay.
She issued the whole construct of this thing. I'm going to spell it out for you. Here is the construction of the front office.
Right. Okay. So again, we are now, we've gone from year one, Wallflower didn't want to, didn't get his opinion on over Rabel to all of a sudden this last year. Oh, now it was all him.
That's what made it so bizarre.
Well,
yes. Where were you?
Yes, that did happen. And that's why this organization is such a tire fire, is because she changes like that repeatedly.
Right. But my point is that Brinker has been here too. You cannot sit here and say, we have no idea about Chad Brinker. You can't say that.
I'm saying I overstate that. We have less of an idea about Brinker.
615-737-1025, our phone number. More coming up next with Paul Kuharsky with us the rest of the program, talking all things Titans. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Paul Kuharsky here with you on this Wednesday morning. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. So explain to me this, and PK, I'll start with you. I'm still sitting here today as mystified as I was yesterday that if you fire Rand Carthon, why are you just not cleaning house? So why do you think Amy Adams-Strunk has taken this approach, and why do you think it has been so long since this team has gotten everybody, the primary decision makers, on the same timeline? Because that has been a long time since that's happened around here.
Mike Herndon looked into this and says they've as far as the records can follow, they've never done it.
Yeah,
they've never hired a GM and a coach at the same time, which is just absolutely bizarre. I mean, I think she's in her head trying to minimize the damage and feels like if she fired Callahan and fired the whole thing, she'd be seen as like, hair trigger again. Like, and
how is she seen?
Well, she's not seen well, but I think she's trying to minimize the damage maybe. And she feels like this is better than the alternative where she's seen as cleaning house, again, more firings on top of firings on top of firings. And so here she is maintaining continuity in her eyes with just one change. And it's not one of the two most important people. The two big decision makers are in-house people. The coach stays the same, and Brinker is an existing guy. I'm thinking that's what she's thinking.
On this program, we identified this possibility as the dumbest of the possibles. So that was just us.
Home run.
Well, and
she smashed the button.
But it begs the question now, okay, I asked this last week. What is now acceptable moving forward into next year? Like, what do they have to do? Like, what does Brian Callahan got to do to keep his job next year?
It's a great question.
If they go 6-11, it's improvement. It's not hard to improve on 3-14.
He's got to find a quarterback that has them tracking well. I mean, this sounds a lot like what we said last year, but this year they've got to be moving on a steady upward trajectory. I know they talk about it not being linear. Whoever this quarterback is has to have some sort of that has to have the team on some sort of linear track of progress. And you can't have 3 good games, quote unquote, good games, which with 2 10-point losses and a win somewhere later in the season and then completely die off. They've got to, do something early and then show steady progress. Otherwise, they're going to completely lose any remaining support that they have.
Yeah, because they're 3-14. They're the worst team in the league. I understand that this happens in the NFL and teams go from really bad to good, but not all the time. Like, it's very possible and probably likely that this time next year, we're going to be talking about a Titans team that misses out on the playoffs and is a team that maybe they're not 3-14, but depending on who they grab at quarterback this offseason, there's improvement where you get to like 7-10. Okay. Like, is that good enough for Brian Callahan and Chad Brinker to keep their jobs? Or are we right back to what it's been every year since 2022, where you're firing somebody, bringing in somebody else, letting somebody else have all the power, and you're just in this cycle from here on out?
It's a great question. Again, I mean, look, along with, Brinker taking shots at the guy who brought him in here in the first place publicly yesterday in the wake of Rand's firing, I read, like, especially with the Nick Suss story in the Tennessee and him almost campaigning for more time right now.
Yeah.
I mean, but I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know how that's going to work out. And, like, to me, also, the person who comes in to be the quote, air quotes, every time we say it from now on, GM of the Titans. I mean, is that is that the person who just takes the fall? I mean, it shouldn't be.
I guess my point is, like, we've done a lot of yelling and screaming today about Carthon and Brinker, but this is Amy Adams-Strunk. This is Amy Adams-Strunk who has royally screwed this organization. That's who it is. Like, that's where the problems start here. And look, we've gone back through the timeline here a billion times. Everybody knows what's happened around here the last few years. But her path now, it's like she realizes that she screwed up, and now without having to admit that she screwed up over the last few years is trying to fix it with just reactionary move after reactionary move after reactionary move. And that's not a path to fix things in the National Football League. You're just digging yourself in more and more of a hole to the point where you've turned into one of the worst franchises in the league with no path forward. It's hard to imagine them getting out of this right now.
Here's another thing that the Titans have come to do. They do not treat people who have dedicated their life to the organization well anymore.
Yeah.
Yesterday, among the 4 firings I reported were Brent Akers, who's the vice president of team operations, and Anthony Pastrana, who vice president of football technology. He's their film guy. All right. Pastrana's been with the team since 97 when they got here. Akers since 98. They joined people like Stuart Spears, Ralph Ockenfels, and Gary Glenn, who spent an incredible amount of time with this organization. Now, when I talked to Brinker and Nihill yesterday, I asked Nihill, why? He said, these are really, really hard decisions and hard days. We've got to set a new standard, and that requires hard decisions. Here's my question about these 5 people I mentioned and others who have been here for a long time, because every time I ask about them, the tone I get is like, well, we're modernizing and these guys aren't modernizing. How about retraining some of your people who have been there from the beginning? And if you think the video guy maybe isn't up to date on the newest video techniques, teach him the new video techniques instead of saying, hey, we're going to crumple up a guy who spent 25 years here and bleeds our colors and is part of our lifeblood. Why not get him up to, where's the on-the-job training for somebody like that, if that's your issue with him?
Yeah.
And I just don't understand that. And they have peeled out a lot of the lifeblood of the organization. And I got to tell you, I am certain that the other people who have been around for a long time, A, fear for their lives when they see this happen to their colleagues, and B, I don't know that people give a damn about morale in that building, but I do. And if you're working there and watching this stuff happen at the higher level and then see the trickle-down stuff at this level, how much fun is it to go into work? Hey, should I come to the lobby to applaud the new general manager?
No, there's a lot of good, smart people who work in that organization. And at the very top, it's just
a tire fire. It's an absolute tire fire. Let's go back to our
So my condolences to those guys, and along with Anthony Robinson, who was the other assistant GM who came in with Brinker and didn't find himself that path, and security director John Albertson.
Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Adam in Portland. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Man, you guys shouldn't let the Titans come in between y'all. Y'all are all friends. They've taken enough from us.
Now I'm going to get mad at you, Adam.
Yeah, well, you do that. No, it's fine. Look, hey, this is the problem, man. Brinker. I disagree with 99.5% of the things Jared says, but when he calls him snake oil salesman, that's what he feels like to me. I don't feel like he knows what he's doing, and he's in Amy's ear so hard. I texted, but I feel like he's the guy at work that nobody's ever seen work, but he's always just sucking up to the boss, and they're like, oh, he's not going anywhere because she loves him. That's what it feels like to me. It's like, what is this? Who is this guy? Like, he's nothing. And so I don't think things are going to improve if you have that structure in place where it's one dude who's whispering things to her, and she's like, okay, he's handsome or smart or whatever. He does things real smooth, whatever impressed Amy about this guy, like whatever it is, we're not going to get better. We're all going to have to deal with it because of that. I just hate it.
Thanks for calling, Adam. Appreciate it.
Well, there certainly may be some of that at play. There certainly was that at play with Rand.
Yeah.
So one person who was schmoozing his way is out, and maybe another has taken his place.
So hold on. So you think that Rand threw Vrabel under the bus? Like Rand wedged his way in? That's what you're saying?
Oh, no. I'm saying Rand's relationship quality, which he sold as his number one thing, is what won him over to Amy.
Which Chad also sold many times
He
as
did.
an incredible value.
Yes. So, I mean, that was his number one thing. And I think football needs to be your number one thing, not relationships, because you're not going to have a winning relationship with everybody.
Right.
And you have to find a way to make
Well,
things work with the people you don't have winning relationships with.
Quite frankly, the relationship part of it is more important to the coach who interacts with the players on day-to-day basis than it is the front office personnel.
You would
That's
think.
just my thought. on it.
If Chad is that kind of snake oil salesman type of guy, then you're
PK's buying.
running along chain of that. I don't see as much evidence of it as everybody else does yet, but I'm open to finding out what I find out.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll get to more of your thoughts on the Titans coming up next. Paul Kuharski with us for the entire program today. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025, our phone number. Let's go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Ed in New Jersey. Ed, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, good morning, guys. PK, we need positive PK to call in. If there's any time in this fan base, we need somehow, some way, you need to reach out because we need him.
Yeah, well, he'll be on the Paul Kuharsky podcast. He's not coming here.
Ooh, fancy you.
Yeah, I'm not bringing him to Rexrode with the treatment I'm getting from Rexrode.
So I cannot justify this in my head, and nor do I want to try. But that does not mean that we are any worse off right now. We're not. I mean, Rand, if you thought he did a good job or a bad job, we're the same. It's awful, but we're the same. And also,
same as when? Yes, the 2
same
days
as
ago.
Before, right? I mean, if you think that we had these issues, you get rid of one person, but you're still essentially have the same issues that you had. I don't think there was tremendous value add that Rand brought. That's my personal opinion. So I don't think we're worse off than where we were before. And my point is that bad process can lead to good results. I mean, was Amy's process good when she hired Vrabel? No, but it landed Vrabel. I'll go to you, Joe. I mean, did the owner of the Detroit Lions change? When they got Dan Campbell, when they got a quarterback, the process is still the same.
Well, I mean, I will quickly jump in.
Result.
They seem to have found a competent member of that family, actually. So
but didn't we think Amy was that at one point?
Yes.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
I know what you're saying, though. I know what you're saying. I mean, look,
thanks for calling.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. Hey, I mean, for all this BS, with some people are buying more than others from Brinker and everybody over there. You know, if they pick good players, then that's what it's about.
Amy saved them.
Pick good players.
Amy did save the organization from Tommy Smith. Maybe, here's a wild idea that I'm just thinking of off the top of my head. Instead of calling for her to sell the team, which is not happening, maybe you call for Kenneth. Maybe it's Kenneth's time.
Well, we've talked about that before. I mean, who's next?
Kenneth is absolutely next. I've talked to her about the succession plan, and there's no doubt about that. So if you want to call for change, don't call for Amy to sell the team. That's not happening. Call for Kenneth's takeover.
Would that help?
I don't know. But if you think it can't be worse than Amy, Kenneth seems like, I don't know him well.
Can it be worse than Amy?
That's what I'm saying.
I think right now it'd be difficult.
Right now it'd be difficult to pull off. But again, like to Ed's point, they're in a pretty good spot for 6 years around here, right?
Yeah. And again, 4 years ago, they were number one seed.
Yeah. So
3.
But which makes
4 seasons.
Yeah, which makes this more mystifying when you think about how it's devolved to this point. And look, say what you will about Vrabel, because naturally some of this is going to lead back to the Vrabel discussion. We're sitting here right now on January the 8th, and a year after moving on from Mike Vrabel and essentially blaming a lot of things on Vrabel for where they were last year, Carthon's now out, and Vrabel's the hottest coaching candidate in the NFL right now. That's where things currently stand at the moment. We talked about it throughout the show. A big part of why Vrabel is no longer here was he didn't feel like Carthon was ready to be a GM. Well, guess what? He was right.
Confirmed.
Yeah, guess what? He was right. So Amy was wrong. Amy screwed it up with Mike Vrabel. We said it at the time, not a good idea to fire Mike Vrabel. I understand that the winning and losing was starting to go the other way here. Have you seen the roster? Do you see what we saw this year with what's become exceedingly obvious that that's the case now?
And she didn't like Mike also in part because he's a strong-willed guy who wasn't a kiss ass. So who do we think she's winding up with in her inner circle now?
I mean, again, if that is what it requires, and that's what is the currency in this organization, they're screwed.
Yes,
they're totally screwed. I mean,
that may be the takeaway from today's program is they're totally screwed.
Well, you need to be a guy, you need to be a guy who can navigate that. And I think Mike navigated it for a while where you can manage her, right? You can be sweet, but still strong-willed and
make sure you throw out a couple Miss Amy's at the presser.
And manage your locker room the way you want and be of influence, quote unquote, upstairs. and keep her at bay to a satisfactory degree.
Well, we never talked about her
Fisher
meddling.
did that with Bud, for a long time, and Reese, and moving away from Houston was a good thing there. He could only do so much from a distance, and he said, "Yes, Mr. Adams," and you did a couple things you didn't want to do, and held him at bay.
Are there commonalities, Amy and Bud?
Oh, certainly. I mean, Vrabel was not Bum Phillips, but there's some similarities in there in terms of getting frustrated with a guy who was good and firing him too soon. Now, I mean, Bum Phillips was doing very well when he got fired, and Vrabel was in a dip.
Yeah, they just couldn't beat the Steelers. They just couldn't get past the Steelers in the playoffs.
Yeah. But you keep going with Bum Phillips. And Bud Adams said that was the move that he regretted most. If we ever talked to Amy Adams, Strunk, we would ask her at some point the move she regretted the most. I would think, I hope in 15 years, that's the move she regrets the most, and she doesn't make a move that she regrets more than that. But who knows?
And again, I don't want to sit here and act like Vrabel was perfect.
No.
Because I think there's certainly some things throughout that process that he did not handle well. That is part of what led to what it did.
Yeah, he could have been
the
a much
New England
better
thing. We've talked
communicator.
about that. So I'm not going to sit here and act like Vrabel was blameless throughout the process.
He could have hired better
But the more
staff.
you look back on it, the more it just kind of feels like, oh my goodness, he was mean, and now he's gone, and you're in a much worse spot than you were.
And also, if he gets, he's getting hired here. If he goes somewhere and has a, long-term success, sure, but also a quick start now with what's going to be a rebuild because these teams are not good. I mean, you think Titans fans aren't going to be watching that and comparing it?
I mean, they've got a lot all over the league with Derrick Henry's 1,900 yards and AJ and on and on.
615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll get to more of your phone calls. Coming up next, full reaction to the Titans firing Rand Carthon and what the path forward looks like now for the organization. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/getitall. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Paul Kuharski, Nick Keyser here with you on this Wednesday morning. The Titans fire Rand Carthon. Chad Brinker, the decision maker, moving forward. We'll get into the path forward for the Tennessee Titans as well. Take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Joe in Nashville. Joe, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
You know what was disgusting? I was sitting there all afternoon yesterday and evening going, yep, what a reasonable person Jared Stillman sounds like here. I was like, yep, he's right. He's right. He's right. He and TD were singing the same song. Like, it's just, I'm just shaking my head this whole time going, old Game of Thrones Jones over there, who's her friend today? Like, this is like high school. Like, this is what, like, Detroit did for years and Cleveland did for years. This is what bad teams do. And I'm curious, we know Denard Wilson was Rand Carthon's friend. Is he Brian Callahan's friend now too? Or Lou Anarumo just got fired up in Cincinnati. I could see that happening if he was too friendly with Rand. You got to find out whose friend everybody is. This is ridiculous. And I was of the mind that either clean house completely or let everybody come back. This is just this thing is dumpster fire. Thanks, boys.
Thanks for the call, Joe. Appreciate it.
It is a dumpster fire, but the friend thing is not unique to the Titans.
No,
I mean, every staff, if you went and looked, when a guy's hired, he assembles a staff of people that are largely guys he knows.
Well, how often do we talk about that with Ray?
From his work around the league. When Mike Munchak was hired as the head coach here, a big part of the problem is that Bud Adams made that decision so late.
They couldn't get good
and so staffs were filled. But another part of the problem was that Mike Munchak had been a Houston Tennessee Titan his whole life. And he didn't have a wide network of people from being around the league to hire. And he ended up hiring Chet Parlavecchio, who he went to high school with, when he's dipping into his basket of friends.
Brian Callahan, same thing.
Yeah. Well, at least Nick Holtz had worked in the NFL.
Yes. That does help.
No, you guys running the wing tee out there. You want to come in and run this NFL offense with us? Appreciate it.
But I mean, friendship makes the league go round, and you hope guys have, you hope your guys have better friends than their guys.
To his point, though, I mean, it's especially extreme, the whole high school Game of Thrones stuff, at the top levels here.
Yeah.
And also, that is an interesting point about Lou Anarumo.
Yes. And I mean, Denard Wilson came in hot and delivered well in front of the press, and his defense stunk. I mean, too many people still. I mean, I think it ranked well, especially in pass defense, which is meaningless based on the lack of turnovers, the lack of sacks, the lack of red zone, and points allowed, which, even if you take out the interception returns and the punt return, ranked very poorly.
Yep, no doubt. Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Bill to the program. Bill, thanks for calling in. Good morning.
William.
Hello, Bill.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. What you got?
Oh, okay. I'm wondering what percentage of Amy's wealth is tied to the Titans and the stadium, which if you had $10 and $1 is all you're concerned with, you're really not concerned about it.
Oh, it's the bulk of her wealth. I mean, it's part of KSA Industries, which also has car dealerships and nut farms and oil interests. But this business is by far the biggest thing KSA Industries has.
She's not Stan Kroenke. We've talked about this before. Like, every NFL
She's one of the
owner,
poorest billionaires.
Right. Every NFL owner is rich, but they're not all same level of wealthy here when you're talking about the billions upon billions these people
Her
are worth.
reported net worth, I believe, is $2.3 billion, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you've got people,
In the teens.
Waltons, the Waltons and Kroenke, and some of these people are, in the 20s or whatever it is.
And she will certainly stand to increase that wealth with the money that will come to her from the stadium.
And owning an NFL franchise is a very, very good thing.
It's
a very appreciating asset.
Which is why you're not selling. I mean, so we can get that idea. Just to kind of reset where we're at here. So they fire Rand Carthon. My general reaction to what everything that went down with the Titans yesterday is this. I think it's the dumbest possible outcome they could have had. We talked about it leading into this yesterday when the winds were kind of shifting this way. Like, to me, the decision was pretty simple. Either you're cleaning house and you're getting rid of everybody and starting this thing over, or you're bringing people back and then evaluating everything either at the end of next season or maybe in the middle of next season when you're 1-6 or whatever it is. But to go this half measure, which in my opinion is what this is. This is a half measure where even the statement that the owner releases makes no sense. You're talking about not being comfortable continuing forward with the way this thing is going, and yet you're still largely continuing forward with the way this thing is going. I hate this decision. I hate this outcome for the Titans. And again, I was for firing Rand Carthon in conjunction with everybody else. And instead, they've taken this half measure, and it leads you to believe, are we just going to cycle right now where you're doing the same thing next year with Brian Callahan and or Chad Brinker and or both when they go 6-11 and are out of the playoffs again? That's where I'm at.
See it next year's firing.
I mean, I got on PK's live stream last night, and I told him that I'd be bookmarking this tweet to see if this time next year he's doing a live video about the Brian Callahan firing. And I'm not joking.
Which would be the third in a row. It is to a degree a half measure. I don't think it's that far off from status quo, though. I guess I'm not factoring in the new GM enough, but I'm not thinking of the new GM as a power, really, right? So I kind of feel
Brinker is the GM, despite the headline at your website. Yes.
So I said why he's not the new GM.
Okay.
I feel like to a degree they streamlined the 3 people into 2 people, and they did maintain the status quo.
So what happens next year with the GM if they decide to fire Brinker and Callahan? The new GM getting fired too?
Well, there's one more deterrent to
taking the job.
Possible candidates.
Yeah.
Right.
Or like, what's worse?
Or that guy's the new.
That's the thing. Like,
the
what's
new
worse?
power.
Is it that, or is the new GM is the next
new
flavor
direction,
of the month
the new
for
direction.
Amy Adams Strunk,
And
and now he's in charge.
Continue to hire from within.
Yeah.
We don't have time to read this stuff, but if you go back and read the explanations and things from last year about everything and then compare it to what was in like Wyatt's.
Oh, you're catching up on that now where they gave Rand the power?
No, but I don't want to hear it, man. My point is that Brinker, the idea that we're going to divorce Brinker from all the mistakes that have been made, and as many people have pointed out, thanks for bringing it up, Paul, on the text line, and still is, man. I've kind of actually argued the other side of this because it's like one acquisition, but Brinker is like the whole thing with Brinker was the injury model, right?
Yeah, no,
Yes.
It failed. But again,
did he argue against L'Jarius Sneed? I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know either. But I think the idea, again, like they wanted to bring in less injury-prone people, which is fine. Sneed clearly was an exception to that. But Lloyd Cushenberry is an injury-prone. He just played football on his Achilles tore.
Yeah.
Not Stephon Diggs.
Right,
sorry.
but let's
Condre
fire,
Diggs.
but let's fire Rand because of Cushenberry.
Condre Diggs is older, and an older guy is more prone to injuries, but Liz Franks this team has crap injury luck. And, Brinker said he's going to try harder to avoid injuries, but I don't know that anybody could avoid injuries. Every team in the league is hurt, and the Titans consistently are more hurt than most teams.
Can we listen to the Brinker thing again? Nick, is Nick on the phone with somebody?
Yes.
We need before the show ends. We need that Brinker little collage on Rand. It's a beautiful thing. The 8:00 hour needs that too.
Things change. The job's changed just in a year.
Yeah, apparently so.
To hear Amy and Burke talk about it.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll have more on the Titans firing of Rand Carthon coming up next, including a line from the statement that Amy Adams Strunk put out there that just drives me nuts. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
And Rand is a tremendous person as far as an evaluator and the relationships he has around the league. And we really wanted to allow him to flourish in that role. Rand brings in a lot of good people, and that's something that this organization can be proud of first and foremost. I do know we have the right GM. You know, Rand Carthon's going to do some great things. He and Brian Callahan just kind of getting this team together. There's a lot of excitement around it. You know, hope is a powerful thing. We're hopeful that the fan base sees that and is excited about what we're doing now. This is where Rand Carthon is just masterful. He has these relationships with these players in a way that most of us in the building don't. We're just so aligned, he and I. And Rand talks about he has this acronym: FIT, fast, instinctive, and tough football players. And I love that. I was like, man, I love that. That's kind of an identity of the team that you want to build. Yeah, Rand's a big part of that. Rand's the one that's really connected with those players in a way that probably no one else has in the building.
That's Chad Breaker. Was that on the official Titans podcast? this past offseason? I believe it was.
Which one?
The Official Titans podcast, the OTP.
OTP.
But not. Well,
Somebody actually had to listen to it to pull that.
So we do. Well, by the way, credit to that. So that's Ian/Jared. Get credit on that one.
They had a really,
together, yes.
Nick's giving thumbs up. They had a really extensive, like 4 minutes maybe, mashup of things said over the last year. That was quite good work. I'll credit Ian.
There you go.
Real quick, on the same topic, a source has reached out to me and said, you're 100% right. Brinker was in charge of analytics and the cap. He was involved in everything. And Carthon even mentioned Brinker and this huge involvement in the Snead trade. So you trying to divorce Brinker from things, not going to work today, buddy.
I'm not divorcing him of things. I am saying final say is final say. We're making a big deal right now that Chad Brinker just acquired final say, right?
Correct.
Well, he just acquired all the power.
Well, he just acquired, though, in the final move of acquiring all the power is getting final say. And who had final say last year?
Carthon.
If it's a big deal now that Brinker has it, then it was a big deal last year that Rand had.
But you do see the difference, right? Because he was also promoted over Rand last year. And so this person coming in, like this arrangement coming up.
Which, by the way, makes no sense.
Well, exactly.
You're promoted over Rand, but you do not have final say over Rob.
And I said that last year. It made no sense, the structure.
And
it's a very confusing structure.
Well, but that's the thing. Is like there were also people saying the final decision maker, Chad Brinker. So I'm just saying, I think it was murky. You say it wasn't murky. I say it was murky. It's not murky now. It is Brinker.
Yeah.
And then someone come in to be his assistant.
Well, and that's why, we keep getting texts about the new GM. Like, people throwing out all sorts of names today. Pete Carroll or
Pete Carroll is not applying for GM jobs.
But the point being, like all these guys that are either high profile names or that have been general managers before in the league and successful general managers in the league, like Rick Spielman's been thrown out there. Why on God's green earth would they take this job? You're signing up to be like the assistant GM is basically what you're signing up to be.
It's also amazing the number of people that want Rick Spielman or Louis Riddick. Like, hey, if you're out there in the media, that's the guy I want because I'm hearing from him and I see his face and I recognize him and I know his voice.
That's why William Clay Ford hired Matt Millen. He was so awesome on those broadcasts. That worked out really well.
Did really well.
Texter says Brinker clearly had final say last year. PK carrying water. I'm just, again, telling you what the people are saying on the text side. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying they're saying it.
I mean, how can you say Brinker clearly had final say last year?
I don't
think Amy Adams Strunk came out and said, in this reorganization, Rand Carthon has final say.
I don't think anyone can say that. I agree. However, it's hard for me to get from this first year whenever Rand was just trampled on everything to this. I doing this.
But
it doesn't matter if he did it or not. He could have. At any time, he could have said, no, we're not doing that. So every decision that was made had his stamp of approval. His final stamp of approval.
So you're sure that the vice president, if he had a disagreement with the president who was promoted over him, could have said, Chad, nah, sorry, buddy, we're doing this. You feel confident in that?
I'm taking them based on the structure
we
that
should
they
take them at
told
their
us.
word. No, we should take them at their word. No, they've earned that.
But you're concerned about that difference in 1 year. You're thinking like a logical human being. This owner does not do that.
Well, yeah, no, that's true.
If you're taking them at their word now that Brinker's gonna make every decision.
I mean, do you not?
I do, but I took them at their word that Rand had the power.
But you understand the difference in the whole. It's a very different situation, right?
I do.
Okay.
But I also think Rand got a new contract last year, correct?
That was smart too. Yeah.
Okay, so if Rand got a new contract last year and they're saying publicly that he's got final say power, do you think that if his contract didn't include final say power, he wouldn't have gotten that out through all of his national media people?
Okay, and which also brings up, apparently, I mean, you believe it's him with this whole, again, which I don't totally understand what Josina Anderson is tweeting about.
Nobody does.
But it sounds like if you believe it's him, then it sounds like he felt like he didn't have it though, right? Would you not deduce that from that?
I have no idea what she's talking about. But he'd be coming if
But
there's
you
a
said-
lawsuit coming. Then we'll find out.
But you
that that's
said
the case.
earlier you thought that she was carrying water for him, which again, that to me would speak to someone who didn't feel like they did have final say.
We'll see.
I guess.
Let's head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Kenston to the program. Kenston, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Morning, guys. Question about the locker room dynamic. Not necessarily with this, but certainly this probably exacerbates it. But kind of was paying close attention to Jeff Simmons' comments after the game. Definitely noticed myself during the game. The Titans really weren't trying to win. Nico Collins fumbled on their first drive. Probably was a fumble they didn't challenge. Had an opportunity late in the second half, I think, to tie the game. They kicked a field goal on like a 4th and 2. So I was like, man, they're really not trying to win this game. But, we kind of know the reasons. But Jeff Simmons' comments were kind of, it stuck out to me because he's kind of was like, I'm here for the guys in the locker room, don't know what's going on upstairs. And kind of caught himself a couple of times to stop and not say something bad. You can kind of see that he was watching his words. So with that, and then what happened with Rand, who kind of was a glue guy from the locker room, maybe to the execs, with his personality, and now he's gone. And so I guess my question is, and if one of the team leaders is kind of feeling that the team really isn't trying to win, how does that work for Brian Callahan and his opinion from the players in the locker room? And can he kind of salvage himself from them thinking that this guy isn't trying to win? And maybe would it be good if they would have moved on from him? Because again, how can he control the locker room moving forward if that's the sentiment? Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Appreciate the call.
PK?
I mean, he had no problem with the locker room, kind of to my surprise, really, with how bad they were and how his stuff wasn't producing results. But I don't think the locker room had a outward bad feeling about Callahan. And if a good share of those guys didn't have a good feeling about Callahan, I think it would have seeped through in some way, shape, or form, and it didn't.
Well, what about that last part of, number one, do you agree that the Titans were actively trying to not win this last game? And if there's any of that in there and the players detect that, can that have staying power with them moving into next year?
No. I mean, the roster's going to turn over halfway.
What about the first part of his question, though? Do you think that there was anything that they did, coaching wise in that game that was,
besides playing two quarterbacks?
Yeah,
No.
the two quarterback thing, a little weird.
Now, I thought the Titans offense looked like the Titans offense.
Yeah.
I think the Titans offense is a tanking offense, the 2024 offense.
Auto tank. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe some truth to that.
Then you
Insta tank. Yeah.
So back to
it's
happy-
built to
happy
lose
fun
games. You don't have to do anything
That's
special
right.
with that team to lose games.
Just let it go. Just put it out there.
Head back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Doug in Franklin. Doug, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
I appreciate it. First of all, this is what sports radio is supposed to be. And shout out to Nick for finding all the great clips.
Way to go, Nick.
One thing we haven't talked about is the lifeblood of any team is personnel, and that goes back to the scouting department. When Rand came in, not his scouts. What's the status of the scouting department? If they're the same as before, we've seen the fruits of their labor. You guys know more about what's going on behind the scenes. What's going on the scouting side?
Well, there's
Good
there's
question.
another example of Joel defend this and ran on this. Change one scout from John Robinson. Guy comes in, is a revolutionary GM with the scouting vision. Change one scout from John Robinson, whose groups scouted brilliantly over the last 3 years when they picked Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley and everything. He wasn't listening to him anyway. But that'll tell me something about Chad Brinker. When this draft is over, if there's some serious change in the scouting department, that'll tell me that they're doing some stuff. These scouts are stale. There's some yes men in there, and I'd like to see some different voices with some different experience levels in there. There's no reason that this group deserves to stay intact so long.
So you're trying to flip around. You're trying to spin you carrying Brinker's water to me defending Rand. Is that the thing?
I think there's been maybe a little bit of both of that today.
No,
according to the text line.
Thank you very much.
I'm just saying what text line says.
Well, I've been reading the text line.
Hey,
Here's
you want
a
Rand
new
to
one.
cook?
Here's a new
Well,
one.
you're going to read selectively out of
No,
it.
Robbie, you've been sitting there.
Oh, look,
What-
he's pulling out his chef hat. Unbelievable.
What hat? Here's a text
Look at you
right
putting
now.
on your chef's hat.
This says
Is
what?
that one of those Titans hats with the T
Like
on
the
it
T.
that Rexrode just pulled out over there?
Hey, God
I like
forbid the
those.
guy wear Titans gear. I mean, that might promote the team.
Maybe that's why I got fired. This texter says, "What happened to PK? Don't be so swayed by the amateurist Brinker." Again, I'm just reading the text, man. You've seen texts that said that I'm defending Rank?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I missed it.
You are.
I
We got a lot of
they're
texts.
I
accurate texts
believe
because you are.
because I know that you wouldn't lie to me, but I honestly did miss that. But I've seen a whole. You're going to tell me it's close to even on that?
No, I'm
Okay,
not.
thank you.
Absolutely 50-50.
Yeah.
615-737-1025, our phone number. A lot more of your reaction to get to coming up next with the Titans firing Rand Carthon. PK with us for the rest of the program. Preds fans, don't miss Smashville Live tomorrow night at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue at 6 o'clock. See your Preds star players up close and personal. Preds player guest tomorrow, Mark Jankowski, Colton Sissons. Tomorrow night at Brewhouse 100 in Bellevue. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text line. Robby and Rexrode sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Got a lot of thoughts flying in today on the firing of Rand Carthon. Bottom line is this. Titans have a terrible ownership problem. And we talked about that last year when they fired Mike Vrabel, and everybody wanted to blame everything on Vrabel. And we went back to the John Robinson thing, and she fired him in the middle of the year. And some people are like, well, it's John Robinson. Drafts are terrible. They traded A.J. Brown. He deserved to be fired. Maybe he did. You don't do it in the middle of the year when you're 7-5 in first place in the division. And since that point in time, look at this organization. Look at what's happened with this organization since she made that decision to fire him in the middle of the year. She is a horrible owner. She has displayed the last few years a horrible owner. Those are the qualities that she's displaying here. And the question is, can she get out of her way? Can she get back to being an owner where she allows some success to kind of foster here? Or is this now what she is, and the Titans are stuck in purgatory, and there's no way to dig themselves out of it? As we've discussed, you can luck into some good hires if you're a bad owner. Teams do that all the time. Have they done that now with this new structure with Brinker and whoever the next GM is and Callahan as the head coach? I guess we'll see. But the problems with this organization began and end with Amy Adams-Strunk.
And why can't she speak? I mean, she used to speak. She's not a good press conference person, but I had individual conversations with her at a couple owners' meetings, and she was perfectly normal person to talk to. So I don't understand what's happened there. And yesterday I talked to Burke Nihill and to Chad Brinker, and I asked that. And Burke said, I am empowered to speak as the CEO of this football team and president or whatever his title is, and Chad is empowered to speak for the football side of things. Well, somebody that won't speak for their own decisions, that's troublesome.
That tells you what you need to know. We are not that we need that confirmation, but it's just more confirmation of just how incompetent she is. I mean, that's what it is. And I'm trying to think, when was the last time that she took questions? Was it Vrabel's hiring?
I think it was pre-COVID.
She was at the Jeffrey Simmons press conference when they drafted him because that was controversial. But she sat there and I believe said something. I don't think she took questions though, but I think she maybe took questions at Vrabel's hiring. I think that might be it. Vrabel.
That's 2018.
That's 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Simmons 2019. And those were the last.
I mean, it's not even like we know it's not going to happen, so it's almost not worth talking about anymore. But still, when you talk about the whole picture, it's
beyond that.
It's alarming.
It's the whole picture. It's the not being accountable for your decisions, and it's the continued horrible decisions, right? Like it's whatever the worst outcome possible is. That's the way she's gone over the last run, which is how you end up 3-14 with the mess that they're in.
And, some of her defenders still say, well, what owners talk? Well, we heard from Jim Irsay. We've heard from Robert Kraft. We've heard from Shad Khan in a short period of time after the season.
And Mara
ended.
too.
Yeah.
All after decisions that were controversial and people weren't happy with, and they talked. They took questions. Yeah, there's 4 in a row. I don't know about, Mark Davis. Mark Davis hide too. I mean, some of them hide.
Yeah.
Mark Davis used to be findable in Oakland at his favorite,
barbershop, get the bowl cut.
Bar and grill. I mean, I have a friend that covered the Raiders who used to, know if he went there at 3:00 on a certain day, he could find Mark Davis and BS with him.
Brian on the text line says, as a Commanders fan, my heart goes out to Titans fans. Having just gone through an eternity with a horrible owner, I can confirm the worst. You're screwed until your current owner moves on. I will say, and that there is a great example of ownership changes and the franchise immediately improves. You can't, it's not going to happen here.
It didn't happen in Carolina, by the way.
Right.
So be careful what you wish for. Eccentric billionaires are an odd lot, generally speaking.
And also they can still be overcome if they, basically luck into, maybe Amy's about to luck into your boy Brinker being amazing. Maybe that's it.
Or you don't even need Brinker, who's not my boy. If this is the wrong draft, but if you luck into the quarterback, If you look into Josh Allen, that solves a lot of stuff.
Right.
The Titans haven't looked into anybody.
Which is a huge thing with the Commander story, of course.
Right.
But still, in the backdrop of all this, I don't know how you couldn't think this way if you're a Titans fan that's watched everything that's gone down the last 3 years. In the backdrop of all this, my initial reaction after the shock of, oh my God, she just fired Rand Carthon and left everybody else intact yesterday was, okay, so next year we're doing this again, right? Like, is she now, when she hasn't been the last couple of years, committed to maybe the patience that's required to get out of this? Is she now all of a sudden going to be? Like, is she going to be committed to this slow roll, this slow build that Chad Brinker's now trying to sell as to what it could take to get out of this? Or is she going to be what she's been the last 3 years, which is reactionary, panicky, and when they go 6-11 or 5-12 next year, everybody's fired and you're starting all over again?
You know what I think is going to happen? I think Brinker has sold himself enough. It'll be Callahan. They'll go 6-11 or 7-10. It's like, well, just didn't get the coach right.
That's say that, but I thought, Vrabel won Coach of the Year, got the contract extension, and I thought he'll be here for the next 5, 6, 7 years because he's demonstrated that he's a competent head coach. He's a strong personality, and she trusts him. But it changes so quickly with her. Yeah, she's real close with Chad Brinker now. What happens in 9 months? What happens next October when they're 1-5?
Oh, you're right.
Does she still feel that
what
way?
happens with that number one pick?
Bet on it.
Yeah. What happens with that number one pick or whatever they turn that number one pick into? I think she'll be very reactionary to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he told me, that in the draft and develop stuff, their player development thing is to get young guys on the field fast. So whatever, thinking trade down, if they trade down and get a bunch of young guys, he said they want them on the field fast, affecting games. So while he's talked patience, he's also said, young impact quickly. So he set himself up for her to look for young impact quickly. And if she doesn't see it, who knows which way the wind's blowing on the wrong day or the right day or all of that.
So you know what, generally speaking, happens when you're playing a lot of young guys? Don't win a whole lot.
Yeah, you struggle.
Yeah. Now, that changes. Like, look, if they go out and they decide that Shedeur Sanders is their guy and he ends up being a great quarterback, then you're right. Like, that changes the entire tenor of the franchise. And we're probably not talking about this next year because ultimately that's more important than anything else in the NFL is the quarterback that you have. But I'm just saying, I don't know how you're a Titans fan and you've watched what's happened here the last few years, and in the back of your mind, you're not already thinking, so Brian Callahan about to get axed in the middle of next year, and we're just looking for a new coach all over again. Is she going to turn on Brinker the way she's turned on Robinson, Vrabel, and now Carthon? Is he next? And what does that mean for this new GM that they hire?
Well, what if you're a Titans fan and they go 5-12 and then she does nothing?
Right. What's the reaction going to be then?
Not happiness. Also, now the next story, this remainder of this week is what happens with the coaching staff. Yeah. And Brinker says, the new GM has control of the coaching staff, though I have final authority on football matters. Well, they're not waiting for the new GM to make decisions about Brian Callahan's coaching staff. No. And there need to be some changes made there. And I would think they're made by the end of the week. Callahan indicated that would be the timetable. So, I mean, I can't see how Colt Anderson survives no matter how much they improved at the end. Who else? Who else?
Nick Holt's part of that. I mean, it's hard for me to look at the offensive operation that went down this year, recognizing that the quarterback play was a huge part of it. I get it. But it's hard for me to look at the offensive operation this year and just say, yep, bring it all back next year. Like, to me, you've got to seriously entertain. If it's clearly not going to be the head coach, you've got to entertain some other changes there.
Yeah,
to me.
I think there's got to be more changes than special teams.
Yeah,
clearly.
I mean, what if there's none? What if the coaching staff is just back next year? All of it.
I think there'd be reasonable cause for upset.
How can you have more outrage than already? I mean, at this
this
point,
would be more.
I mean,
I think
isn't everyone numb?
Keep stacking.
I mean, at what point do Titans fans just get numb to everything?
Keep stacking, Joe. Keep stacking.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Final segment coming up next. Take more of your thoughts on Rand Carthon's firing, the path forward for the Tennessee Titans. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final segment of the day. Robby and Rexrode. Paul Koharski with us here on the program. PK, the floor is yours for your final thoughts on where we sit right now.
This is a PK rant?
No, summary.
Oh,
My
summary.
summary judgment, if you will.
Okay.
This team's dysfunctional. It's bad. Owner needs to speak. Owner needs to defend herself. Owner needs to make better decisions. Uncomfortable with Nihil, uncomfortable with Brinker, despite the fact that people are saying Brinker, I think, less bad than Carthon, which at this stage of this franchise, I don't think it's terrible to say I'll take less bad in certain departments, which is really the extent of what I'm saying. People are taking that as me throwing a parade for Brinker. Have at it. The coach is in place. They've got the number one pick. This GM job is not nearly as attractive as they're making it out to be. People have to get used to the GM not being a power and adjust this title thing. Brinker is the decision maker on all things football. Get used to that. I think we will hear from him more than we heard from Rand, which was not at all. So at least we'll know what they're thinking or while they're doing things. Callahan's already a communicator. So we'll have that going for us. My thing is to trust nothing going forward. The last 2 years, I've been too optimistic about what they could do and not skeptical enough about things. I said this last night, Robby. You heard it probably. Everything is greeted with skepticism.
Yeah.
They get a good free agent. I'm going to say that looks good, but I need to see him on the field doing something. Whoever they pick in the draft, they say there's encouraging reasons to be optimistic about this guy, but I need to see it on the field before I do anything. The year they ran it back, I thought too much of it. This year, I thought they were a third place team that wasn't going to make the playoffs, but I had them probably 3 wins too high. I have no reason to be confident. You have no reason to be confident. It's a bleep show, and they need to do a whole bunch to win everybody back, in a brick by brick fashion.
Ooh.
Which is
Now we're talking.
Which is a hell of a lot of work. Do I believe they can do it? Prove it.
Yeah, we're not buying it. Brinker, suck up. I give you, I've been giving you crap today. Look, you guys covering the team on a daily basis, you got to deal with Chad Brinker. For Titans fans, I mean, maybe he'll end up being good. But I just really have a problem with, one, how some of the messaging has come out in the wake of this. I find some of it to be astounding, and we didn't even get into all that today. And two, I think Brinker is very culpable for the state they're in already. I mean, that's just doesn't mean that things can't get better from here, but I would not be optimistic.
I don't disagree that he's culpable. I think there are degrees of culpability, and that maybe I think he's a touch less culpable than everybody else.
Well, we're going to find out. Look, I said at the beginning of the show, I would have fired Rand Carthon. I would have fired Rand Carthon. I also would have fired Chad Brinker, and I also probably would have fired Brian Callahan. And it started this whole thing all over again. Clearly, they're not doing that, and that's
but
not
you
the
thought
way
that or status quo.
Yeah,
and so I think this is a version of status quo.
Yeah, and I think we view that a little bit differently. But now this setup that you've got, I mean, the question still, to me, it all comes back to the owner. Like, what's her patience level now? Because the idea that these guys are going to go from 3-14 to some team in the playoffs next year, I realize that happens from time to time in the NFL. But to me, the more likely reality is there's still going to be a team that's on the outside looking into the playoffs. Maybe they improve from 3 wins, which is not very difficult to do. And they're going to be 6-11 or 7-10 or whatever it is next year. And is she going to have the patience to either stick with it at that point, or are we right back in the cycle that you've been in for the last 3 years, which is, I like this person one day, I think that they're terrible at their job the next day, and then they're fired, and then I cozy up to somebody else and trust them for a while, and then I fire them and I go to somebody else. It feels like you're in a cycle right now that's hard to break if you're Amy Adams Strunk, which gives me zero confidence whatsoever that they're digging their way out of this anytime soon.
Edge of our seats for everything.
I mean, they need a quarterback is, and I don't know if the veteran options are anything really transformational is going to come out of that.
I mean, hell, at this point, bring Rodgers in. What's the difference?
I don't know if anything transformational is coming out of the draft.
Right. But I almost feel like in the situation they're in, you need to throw the Hail Mary at Shedeur Sanders and hope he's incredible.
And you're the guy who says everybody fails in the draft.
Well,
virtually everybody.
Very few live up to their draft position, right?
So use it on somebody that's going to be a star for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's where they're at right now. It's look, Titans fans, I feel for you. I really do. Like they have displayed qualities of dysfunction on a repeated basis at this point that, if you'd asked me 3-4 years ago, I wouldn't have thought possible, but that's where they are. And when you start talking about the laughing stocks of the league, the Jets, the Browns, guess what? You're right there with them now.
Yeah. Titans, Jets, Browns, Jags.
You're
Colts.
right there with them.
The Colts too.
You're right there with them. Now all you have to do is sustain it.
Yeah.
To really be with them. And I think the Browns are in pretty damn good shape outside of the Deshaun Watson deal. I like their coach.
Yeah.
I like their GM.
Outside of that one little thing.
Yeah. Outside of the $260 million.
Yeah.
PK,
that's just money.
Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your locks.
Jason Big Joe coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.